Today's guest came home from the bar one night, turned on SportsCenter, and watched a segment on LeBron James. He was the same age as him, and something hit him like a ton of rocks. He had been coasting his whole life. He was betting on natural ability, never actually testing what he was capable of. And then he sat with a fear that most people never say out loud. What if I actually try my absolute hardest and find out I can't? That night is where everything changed for him. He went on to bootstrap FightCamp, survive COVID's biggest hangover, and built one of the most distinctive brands in the fitness space. How? By staying disciplined enough to know when to stay the course and honest enough to know when to start over. And we break it all down in today's episode. So I sit down with Khalil to talk about perseverance, reinvention, and what it actually takes to build something that you can sustain for a decade. And so if this show lands or any other show lands, my one ask is that you hit subscribe so you never miss a conversation like this one. But you're listening to another episode of The Mind of George Show, so let's dive into today's guest. All right, everybody, welcome back to another episode of The Mind of George Show. I'm really excited about today's conversation. It could be the entrepreneurial spirit. It could be unlocking a new hobby or passion of mine that I might selfishly already be shopping on this gentleman's website to have in my home to be a better athlete or to learn how to fight in my living room. But I'm really, really excited to talk to today's guest. Khalil is joining me on the show. We're going to get into it, but he is a founder, a strategist, a growth architect. And what I love about him is he has a very big strength where I used to have a weakness, where he basically takes discipline with creative business thinking, and he helps leaders and brands scale with purpose, which I love. He's bootstrapped startups. He has an incredible team and company right now. He's built teams. He's performed and been through market shifts. He knows that the growth is not just in the work, like the real work is not just in growth, but most importantly, integrity, clarity, and operational excellence. Frameworks, approaches, repeatability, sustainability, scalability. And I'm assuming, and I'm probably going to get into this, there's probably a lot of correlations between boxing with integrity and building a business with integrity. Mm-hmm. And a lot could be learned because I think that that's probably a conversation we're going to get into. But without further ado, I wanted to welcome Khalil to the show. So Khalil, welcome to the show.
Nice. Great to see you, George. Thanks for having me.
Of course, you already win, by the way. Everyone's going to love you more with that French Canadian accent. I'm screwed. You're bald. We share that in common, and you have a way better voice than I do, so you win.
The with accents, it's the grass is always greener. You know, you come to Montreal and Quebec, and then suddenly your American accent is hot. You know.
I know. I always get jealous, and then I'm like, you know what? It is what it is. At least I don't mind my own voice. Now, it took me 600 episodes of my own podcast to be able to listen to my own voice, so it's good.
Yeah,
it's good. I like it though. Maybe it's just my man crushing because of the bald head, and all that stuff. So,
I relate.
I wanna dive in and I wanna kind of frame this episode and this conversation because you have a lot of experience as an entrepreneur, which we're going to get into, but I also love your approach. I love the way that you see business, and you can see based on your results and what you've created, how that translates into real world success, right? And I know now you love helping founders, you love helping entrepreneurs, and everybody listening to this is an entrepreneur to some degree, even if it's just in their heart. And so I'm curious, because you have so much experience in this, like 12 plus years with this company, I'm sure an entrepreneurial spirit before that, is like, as we dive into this conversation, if everybody listening, like just takes one thing and puts it to heart, but maybe the perspective that you share or a story that you share, what do you think is possible for them when they actually apply the things that we're going to be talking about?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And that's a great question. And I'm glad you told me you would ask it just before the show, because I've been thinking about the perfect answer. And what I think people would take away if they would apply my lessons is, I think people would give themselves more room. And I think ultimately they would have more confidence in themselves and feel less less alone maybe in this journey, and a little bit more like, okay, I guess this is just normal. I guess this is part of all of it. And the reason why I say that is because I think probably a unique feature I think about my story is I have a consumer brand, but I was kind of like amongst I was fortunate enough to be rubbing shoulders with a lot of tech elite at the same time. Like you're talking, kind of the best, arguably the best company builders in the world, and it felt quite, I would say, elevating to see them struggle with exactly the same thing as like I was struggling with, and that I've seen like a lot of entrepreneurs struggling with. And you're like, okay, so sometimes you put people on a pedestal, and you're like, man, people just have everything figured out, and look how much their company is growing. What am I doing wrong? Like I must not be good at this, basically. And then you figure out that no, like they're dealing exactly with the same thing, and some people are just better positioned than others, and it gives you a lot more. You're just less hard on yourself.
Mm. I could, it's so funny you said that about the accent. The grass is always greener. It took me about 10 years of being an entrepreneur before I got to be at the dinner tables of all these people I put on a pedestal. And
Right.
then I was like, I'm really excited to go back home to my company.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I'm really excited to go back home to my team, because I look at it and I'm like, oh, I wasn't prepared for that. So I love the analogy that you even used earlier about the accents. One of the things that you said I want to ask you about, can you unpack what you mean by like more room? Because I think I
Mm-hmm.
know where you're going with more room, but I would love to like hear your thoughts on like, what do you mean by more room? If people gave themselves more room.
Yeah, I think at least my experience, and at least like my friends that have started businesses, quite often there's like a few patterns with these people. I think they're definitely rebellious, but also pretty relatively self-confident enough to be able to say, you know what, I'm just actually going to bet on myself. Um, but the whole world is telling you that you shouldn't, essentially. Like every single signal, like it's great. Like, for me, my parents were very supportive, and that wasn't the case for a lot of my friends, but that was very helpful. But then the rest of the world is is basically like telling you you're just not gonna make it, man. Like, from the stats all the way to people you speak to that that are going to tell you why your business is not going to work, to your first customers who are going to say like, I really don't need your product, to your first teammate you're trying to hire, and them telling you no, to the first investors you try to court. So it's a rejection full journey that, like,
Mm-hmm.
even I think the most confident people I think they get challenged quite a bit to be like, maybe I'm wrong, maybe
Mm-hmm.
maybe it's the idea, maybe it's the concept, maybe it's the product, maybe it's me. So
Mm-hmm.
I feel like you live in this world, as I think at the beginning, especially when you're just trying to calibrate, and you can get lucky and maybe like just right out the gate, like things are working for you, and that right away brings you a lot of confidence, but that's pretty rare. So I feel like you have to, I feel like we're constantly, even the people that are super far, like they, have raised hundreds of millions and have $1 billion companies. I think there's a degree in it. You get better with time, but there's a degree at which on a semi-regular basis, they're like, am I going to lose everything?
Mm-hmm.
So living with this constant stress I think can be quite challenging on the motivation, and
Mm-hmm.
that's why I believe that entrepreneurship is an endurance sport more so than a sprint. Like, you have to, I think the way you lose at this game is by quitting,
Yep.
and the way you win at it is just to keep at it, basically. Like the company technically can really only die if you stop working on it.
Yep.
So this is a super long-winded answer.
I love the long-winded answer, because I have a lot to unpack from it. I
Uh-huh.
think I want to repeat back, just for everybody listening, a couple of the things that you said that I think are like actually drastically important and overlooked all the time. And
Mhm.
this isn't a fortune cookie. This isn't a cliche. I want to enhance what Khalil said, is that really the only way that you lose in this game is if you quit. I'd say that that's part one. And part two is that if you're more committed to being right than you are about making progress and learning,
Mhm.
because I look at that and, I look at the fact now as like 20 years into this of like multiple companies, successes, failures. I am less confident now than I've ever been my whole life, but more successful because entrepreneurship has this really funny way of teaching humility, right?
Yes,
And it's like, I
so true.
realized in all these moments where I'm like, oh, I know, or this is the way it has to go. I can look back with 100 examples of how every single one of those failed. And then I have all these ones I'm like, I don't think it's going to work, but you know what? I'll give it my all and I'll try. And I look back and I'm like, it worked. And so I wanted to acknowledge what you said because it's huge. And I'm curious because I have so many places to take this, but I want to stand under the lens of perseverance because I love that as like a
Mhm,
really good container for this. Perseverance is, you were talking about how the world is like stacked against you,
mhm,
right? And I'm assuming even with your product is both online, meaning like people are getting like taught through boxing, but then there's a physical product component, then there's tech involved. Like we're not talking about like one company. We're talking about like three companies in one,
uh-huh,
right?
yep,
And so I imagine like going back 12 years, it wasn't like, this is a popular model. There's things here. There was a few examples. And so I'm curious for you is like you were talking about how the world doesn't want us to succeed. Totally agree. We're stacked with all
mhm.
this evidence of like you shouldn't, or there's somebody out there already doing it, or they're doing it better than you are. And so where did you get that mindset to keep persevering? Is that something that you learned because you had like blind confidence, or is it something like your parents instilled in you? But like,
Mhm.
where did you develop that? You know what, like, I'm going to prove I'm wrong, or I'm going to do it anyways, or I'm willing to bet on myself.
It's a great question. I'm not sure it's specifically where like it deep down it comes from. But I do remember that I would say I think like I was like 20, 21 or like 19, 20, 21, like that in that age. And I had a little bit of an epiphany night. I talked about it often to my friends and stuff, but it was just this one night where I came back from, I don't know, some bar or whatever. Went out with my friends. The drinking age in Quebec is 18, FYI. So
Mhm.
people think I wasn't breaking the law.
I grew up in Boston, so our kids used to drive up to
Of
go because they
course.
were 18 when they were seniors in high school.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. Once a year during spring break, we get everyone but
Uh-huh.
Quebecers to just sort of raid our bars.
Hmm.
Very common practice, which I understand. Uh, anyway, so I used to my routine whenever I would go out and come back is I would come back and just like watch ESPN or basically like Sports Center in Canada, and it was this time around. There's a whole segment on LeBron James, and I think I lived like my first early life the whole time thinking I have so much time. I have so much time to accomplish everything. And so I kind of like went to my teenage years and I was good enough in school, like I ended up doing engineering school and I had an easy time in school compared to some of my friends, but I wasn't the most disciplined at working. Um, so I wouldn't like, I wouldn't have like 95% on like, every exam, but I just didn't have to work a lot of, didn't have to work too hard to do whatever I needed to do basically. So I kind of ran on that mode until like I was 19 or in 20. And then at some point that night, it's kind of the first time I think in my life when I was like, damn, like I don't think I'm accomplishing. I think I'm coasting basically. And that was the segment on LeBron James, which is funny today because it's actually a very relevant conversation as he's like looking to retire. But like he's the same age as I am. And at 18, 19, or 20, he had already accomplished so much. And I think my ego caught to my reality, basically,
Mm.
And at that point, I was like, what am I doing? Like, I'm just not really like challenging myself. Like, this is just, you know, this is wasting time and wasting energy. So it's a weird night, man. Like, it was like, you know, I feel like at that night, like something changed. And then I think I decided to really test my abilities, basically, but because I think there was probably a little bit of fear of trying and failing at that point, you know, because like there's a fear with trying very hard, is that you find out that you can't.
Oh,
And that
bro.
fear
Can you
is,
say that again? Can you say that
yeah,
again?
yeah. So there is a fear of trying your best at doing something that may not succeed. Like, there's fear in that
Mhm.
because you may find out that you don't have the capability to do it. And that's a scary thought for a
Mhm.
lot of people.
Mhm.
So a lot of people would rather not find out and, maybe live in a world where they think they could have, and I think entrepreneurs are not built that way. I think they're like, I'd
Mhm.
rather find out.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think that
I
mindset
think,
like stuck with me for since that moment and after, to be honest.
well, I love it. And that was an incredible answer. I actually think what's really ironic, as I've heard that line so many times, but I've never talked about it on the podcast. I actually think that that's a really good way to see if you have what it takes to be an entrepreneur.
Mhm.
Is like, ask yourself, like, do you really want to accurately inventory the pantry?
Right.
Right? Like,
Yeah.
do you want to know? Right? Because I think, and this is a correlation. I remember, similar to you, I had a few of those moments, but mine was different because, I joined the Marine Corps to survive, right? Like, I went from homeless kid
Mhm.
to like, I'll make it, I'll figure it out. So entrepreneurship wasn't my choice. It was something I fell into, but I actually struggled with entrepreneurship because I didn't have the structure telling me every single day to like grind or push. Like, everyone's like, well,
Mhm.
you were a Marine, it was so easy. I was like, yeah, but I got told what to do every day, even though
Mhm.
I had plenty of Marines under me. I had like a boss, and they convinced me for 13 years of my life that we were unkillable.
Mhm.
Newsflash. We're all killable, whether you believe it or not. And then when I came into entrepreneurship, I had that same thing. I was like, oh my God, everything I touch is going to work. Like, nobody can kill me, nobody can
uh,
hurt me.
right.
And to some degree, that blind optimism helped me. I had a lot of success early on. But what I couldn't do is I couldn't function when a failure came. It would
Mhm.
debilitate,
Yeah.
right? Like, it would knock me completely out, and I like could not function.
Yeah.
And so it was this very much like feast or famine, because to
Mhm.
your point, I couldn't handle the feedback because I had been gaslit my whole most of my adult life.
Yeah.
I'm invincible. I don't feel pain. Pain is weakness leaving my body. We're
Mhm.
unkillable. We do X. And then in entrepreneurship, it's a very, very different game. And so I think
Mhm.
that I love the way that you broke that down. And you were also talking about, and I think I have a question in here, but I was intrigued by why you said this. Um, you started realizing you were coasting,
Yeah.
right? There were certain things that like came easy, but I realize as an entrepreneur, I see this a lot with clients and people that I'm coaching, is we set out to achieve this thing and then we fall into the finish line trap where we hit that false goal and then we start coasting, and we
Mhm.
don't realize it till it costs us something. And so I'm
Right.
curious what your perspective is on coasting. And then now you had that clarity and you're like, okay, I can't coast anymore. I really need to see what I'm capable of. But I feel like that's a practice and a discipline, not really a mindset. It's something you have to pursue. So, like, what's your relationship like with coasting now?
That's a very interesting question because it evolved a lot. Um, I think it depends what we define as coasting.
Mm,
If we define as coasting to actually, because a coasting to someone can just be take a break, which I
yep.
really believe you need to take a break to be innovative. Like, I
Yep.
don't think you can constantly, I argue you can constantly hit a rock without thinking, but innovating and being creative, I think you need to have some free headspace. So I don't like, so in that context, if we define coasting as not grinding, I think you need to coast at times, if we say it like that.
Yeah.
Um, I think coasting in the other sense of, um, I just don't feel challenged right now. And that's a state that I want to stay in for too long. Or like, by definition, you say too long, it means too long. But I mean, I think it's, I don't know. I think honestly, I think it's a personal answer to people, because like at some point for me, I used to think that like it's all about performance. And now I see that as being a little bit more, well, it's kind of more so about happiness. So
Mm-hmm.
that evolved, like success in my head has evolved a lot,
Yeah.
and I think for the first 5 years or 6 years, we're like, ah, man, this is the Hunger Games. And then like the finish line, and all these companies were getting sold, like, 12 years ago, companies were getting sold to Google, like within 3 years, 4 years. And, you build something, boom, you sell it, and then big payday. And then you start another one and you do that again twice in a decade. Clearly that has not happened for us that way. And to be honest, I think this pace was, I haven't seen that level of pace where people build and sell companies to that scale in that short of a time period. So now you have to think of like, okay, I'm basically going to spend my whole 30s or 40s or 50s building a business. And that's a very precious decade, a decade where you still are very much, your body is relatively good. You're young, you're vital, like
Mm-hmm.
you feel like you can, some of these decades can be the best decades in your life, right? So like, how do you want to spend it? Do you want to be like always on and grinding nonstop? Because that, I also think, kind of leads you to quitting
Mm-hmm.
faster. So this, again, another long-winded answer for you, George. But
Well, it's
this is what,
I'm gonna
yeah,
tie
yeah,
it together. I'm gonna
yeah,
tie
yeah.
it together because I think you hit a couple valid points, which I love, and your perspective on is number one is like under this lens of like perseverance. Number one is perseverance comes down to you having the desire, but also the capacity to continue. Right.
Hmm.
And so
Yeah.
that means that what you're doing, you actually have to be in alignment with. And I've thrown this statistic out on the podcast, but I was doing this the other day. 2/3 of businesses fail before they hit the 10-year mark, but the number one reason is misalignment.
Mm.
It's not no funding, it's not bad product, it's not bad product market fit, it's quitting because of
Misaligned, yeah,
misalignment.
misaligned with the founders, you're saying. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, like basically like this thing that I'm doing, to your point, is like not making me happy. It's not bringing me
Hmm.
fulfillment. Or the thing that I've seen now with like 2+ decades in this is that what I thought I wanted as fuel is scarce. Money is not fuel.
Hmm.
Followers is not fuel. Sales and top line revenue is not fuel. It's
Right.
fleeting and it's an addiction. And then
Right.
what you
Yes.
realize underneath it is you're like, once you remove it again, because to your point, we grew up in the
Hmm.
same era. You look at all those guys that sold companies, within 3 months, they had to start another one or they were clinically depressed because they
Right. Right.
had
Right.
no
Right.
idea how to like live life. Right. And
Hmm.
so I love your long-winded answer because when I think about perseverance, you know, there's the part where like you have to be able to continue or have the capacity to continue, and it's playing the long game, which speaks to like meaning and a why, which I'm going to ask you in a second. And then I think the other thing is, even when we were talking about coasting, is that you don't want to look at your business like it's a 9 to 5 where I'm clocking in or clocking out, because then you're wasting those years of your life. Right. And it's like, am I growing? Is this a season of
Hmm.
growth? Is this a season of sustainability or maintenance? Is this,
Yeah.
and so that's where the coasting thing comes in. And I think it is an individual answer. And then you said something which I think makes up a core component of perseverance, which is, how do you define success?
Hmm.
And I would love your thoughts on this because you talk about this and I've had the same journey. I think we're similar in age and it sounds like we share a lot of commonalities and similarities in how we see business. But how I see success now is drastically different than I did even 8 years ago, 9 years ago, because my son is 9 years old.
Hmm.
Success has nothing to do to business with me. It's
Hmm.
basically how much time and how many memories can I create with my son? I don't
Right.
care how much money I can spend, where I can go,
Yeah.
which I don't care. I just want presence with him, but
Yeah.
it dictates how I spend my time in the business. And so I'm curious now, like, what, how has your relationship with success evolved? Like you led to, like, where did it start? Where did you end up? And why did you end up here?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think today my definition of success is actually pretty similar to yours. It's, again, I think that the ultimate currency of any currency ever is really time, so the better those hours can feel to me, and the better those years and the better those months and the better those decades can feel. I think ultimately that's my job as a human being living this experience, to try to maximize that. Basically, like, if I'm an AI agent, I'm optimizing myself for, maximum amount of happiness per life,
Mm-hmm.
now happiness can be a very complex topic and blah 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 blah, but i think I think that's ultimately what I'm optimizing for, and not to be mixed with pleasure. These are not the same things at all. And I think, looking at training, looking at everything, like, you can find a lot of happiness in challenging yourself and doing great work. You can be passionate about a craft as an entrepreneur, and that is a passion. Like, an artist is passionate about this beautiful piece of art they've been working on for years, and to me that's the same relationship between an entrepreneur and their business, right? This is what you're going to leave in the world. So for me, success used to be, that's not where it started, right? Success used to be, how big can your company get? Like, that's just a question of size and valuation, especially that, for me, I kind of like went on the on ramp with the tech game and the VC game. So it's all about return on investment for these investors. And, the golden entrepreneurs are the ones that create 1,000x returns and blah, 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 blah. So I approached it like a sport early on, when I'm like, I just want to play in the NBA, and right now I'm varsity. I'm trying to get to the NCAA, and then, hopefully I can make it to the NBA. So that was kind of how I approached it. Like that. And that was an exciting analogy for me. Like, I'm like, man, entrepreneurship is basically a sport where your body is not gonna, let you down until, I don't know, you can be 80 years old and still be an entrepreneur. So it was like, okay, that's exciting. I'm starting early. I'm not going to deal with the fact that, like, oh, I discovered a sport too late, which happened to me, with boxing and so forth. So I'm like, good. Like, I can build myself here. And then I think we went a little too far. And then it was like, okay, now our mental health is getting affected by this. I'm also, I'm skipping a lot of precious years that are, I'm not spending time with my family. I'm like, okay, wait, I think my priorities are all messed up here. And then at that point, you start to feel like, oh shit, like, I really thought like I had a decade in me. Actually, if that keeps going like that, I don't. Like, if this thing is not gonna get figured out within the next 2 years, then, F it, I'm gonna move on. So this is where it's like, okay, wait, this mindset is not gonna work. Like, that has its limitations. It needs to evolve into a place where I can stay endurant in it. And sometimes that means accepting that things are not going as fast as you want, or that you're not always on, and that you are coasting at times.
I love that. And it brings me, as you were speaking, it just led my intuition to ask you about reinvention, because I feel like when we think about you in FightCamp and like 12 years in, and like how your definition of success has changed, and what started with like tech heavy and then a consumer product. And I believe you guys have had the same or similar product suite since the beginning.
It changed a lot, actually.
Did it? Yeah. Well, did you always have like a few? So here's my question, and you can explain this in it. To make it 12 years, right? Where like, I thought it was this, and we would exit, and this, and what success looked like. You've had to reinvent yourself and the business quite a few times inside of it, while also keeping the business on the road. And so I'm curious, like, what that has been like for you, because, and the reason I ask this is, like, we're in 2026 recording this. If you're listening to this in the future, welcome to the past, maybe 5-10 years from now. I don't know how you found it, but The rest of us are in 2026 right now. And I feel like for you, this is probably you're noticing a market shift and a consumer shift drastically that we haven't seen since like COVID or even like 2008, 2009 in consumer behavior. And I'm watching a lot of people struggle because they're really romantic about how they used to do business or how it used to be or how I used to show up. And I know you've learned these lessons. And so I'm curious, like, what your perspective is on like reinvention and how you've gone through them and then how you've protected your values, but also kept the company going every time you've done them.
Yeah. So that's a great question. So for the sake of people listening, basically the way we got started. Okay, so let me take a step back. FightCamp is an online platform that basically you can learn and train boxing and martial arts on it. It's not just a YouTube platform. It's not a media platform only. It actually has literally programs that you have to do and graduate from, and they go from very introductory beginners all the way to advanced. So we basically have a big tree map of every lesson that we think you should know, or every technique you should know for you to get your foundations right, and they're done by professional fighters and so forth. Now, that's one side of the business, and that only came in 2018 that we started that, and that itself has evolved a lot. Before that, all we developed is a specific AI motion technology that you put on your wrist. These are kind of small sensors. You put them on your wrist, and we design specific wraps that holds them together. And what it does is it's the only tech that gives you martial arts specific performance metrics. Think of it as like the Strava for martial arts, right? So it's like it monitors every punch that you throw, every strike, and we have them for the feet as well now for kickboxing and going on to Muay Thai next and so forth. And basically it tracks the type of punch or strike that you throw. It tracks the speed and it tracks the power of the impact on the bag. And when you accumulate all this data together, you can basically monitor what you do. For example, you could analyze what you do in the ring from a tactical standpoint, where like, right now it's, you would need like a camera or, even, kind of people categorizing each punch. And at the same time, you also see how your endurance and performance is changing as the training goes out. And then from a training to training standpoint, you can see how your capacity increases or decreases or stays the same. So ultimately, it's like before, everything was subjective for boxers and martial artists. They could, they could monitor how many rounds, or they could monitor how it feels from an intensity standpoint, but it was very hard to like get any type of accurate data about this. Right? So we just started with that. There was no content. We didn't sell any equipment, let alone clothing or whatever. But we just made that piece of hardware for professional athletes and Olympic teams. And that carried us from 2014. There's 2 years of R&D, zero money coming in. Parents kind enough to let us work out of the garage with not charging us rent, essentially. And 2016, we are starting to get a prototype that looks quite nice. And that actually fighters are becoming very interested to use. And, at that point, the Olympics are happening that year. So we're kind of testing that tech with the US Olympic team and the Canadian Olympic team. So we're pretty excited, but we're making zero revenue, Then 2016, we were able to raise a little bit of money. We were accepted in Y Combinator. And this is when like we moved the whole company from Montreal to San Francisco, or the Bay Area. And this is where like, I started rubbing shoulders with the people at Silicon Valley and understanding how they work, how they think, and so forth, and kept in touch with them over the years. At that point, we raised something like $400K, which is it's literally nothing for a hardware startup. Because again, like if you build context. If you're building software, your cost is your engineer, you know,
Mm-hmm.
and yes, there's a little bit of hosting cost or whatever, but there's very little. The main cost is the builders, and that's it. When you're building hardware, your engineers for sure, and it's multiple different engineers. So, you know, from firmware all the way to the software that's going to be connected to the hardware, all the way to the, you know, manufacturing engineers and the supply chain. And so you have to make this stuff. And then to make it right, even to make a small piece of plastic with a PCB in it, it's actually quite a complex supply chain. And you got to get 3 different suppliers to work together, from, you know, the people making the chips to the people assembling them on the PCB to then people making the plastic. And then they all got to go through an iteration cycle. So you need a lot of money basically to come up with, especially like, you know, an electronic hardware piece that you can sell at scale. So 400 grand is like, even think, just me saying that today, I kind of feel, I don't even know how we did it. So we needed, for us, we needed to raise money to make money because we were making an electronic piece. I think if you're making other businesses, like you're just building a brand and it's a clothing brand, you can kind of get started and not have to raise money and so forth.
Mm-hmm.
So anyway, and during that time, we were able to get through it. And then we realized that selling to professional athletes was just not that big of a company. And we were like, we can basically pay ourselves. We were the 6 of us at that point. I have 5 of the co-founders.
Mm-hmm.
And basically, we were like, all we can do is make about $1.2 million a year. And we can pay ourselves. And that's pretty much it. So, well, and we were not paying ourselves well at all. So then we were like, okay, we have to reinvent ourselves if we want to build something meaningful. And then we were like, what's the best way to use our innovation and build something that, you know, could actually be something we would want to build? And the idea was to take boxing to the homes. But instead of
Mm-hmm.
just having a YouTube channel, what if, like, because anybody who works out from home or tried and failed to work out from home, the biggest pain is honestly the, you know, like, it's very hard to get motivated by yourself when nobody's watching. You have like and you're alone in this room. It's probably not even that big of a room. And then, you know, maybe it's not even that sexy of a setup that you have. You have to position yourself every time you do a burpee because you're going to hit the chair or whatever. And then, you know, you're like, okay, I'm just going to use this every
Mm-hmm.
3 days. So when even watching YouTube, like, people are like, okay, like, let me at least join a gym where I feel like other human beings are there to like motivate me and so forth. But
Yeah.
if you change that experience and instead actually make yourself accountable to what you're doing, example is, you know, like, someone else knows, like when people run on Strava, right? Like
Yep.
the idea to be able to socialize your result is actually a quite effective motivator. You know, it's like, yeah, like, I'm not gonna show up, you know, like nothing. And I don't care. I'm not here to be a competitive runner, but it's my score, you know, like, and, you know,
Mm-hmm.
who am I if this score is not improving? Like, what am I doing? And all of this, you know, performance tracking actually ends up being quite a big motivator to stick with it and continue with it. So that was our idea, is like, you know, we believe strongly that martial arts and boxing is the best training in the world. And this is our belief, right? People don't necessarily have to agree, but this is our belief as founders of FightCamp. And at that point, it's like, what, you know, how about we take our innovation and make it interactive? Hey, that could be
Mm.
cool. Where now, you know, and I don't know how many people that I know that bought a boxing bag, installed it, took the time to install it in their basement, their garage, hit it a few times, and
Once.
they're like, what am I doing? Like, you know,
Yep.
like, I don't know what, like, I'm just gonna hit the bag, like, you know, and I don't know if I'm getting better. I don't even know what to do. So having lessons and that, well thought lessons with real technique, and then using the tech for it. That was a new reinvention, right? So these were like two pretty big pivotal points. The third one is when I think we lost a little bit of our way during COVID, because we got so big during COVID. Like, we talk about being at the right place at the right time, and I cannot I don't think I will ever see this level of traction again. I remember like it was yesterday, like March 16th, 2020, lockdown in California, and I think like in a lot of places, and sales literally tripled on that day, and it never stopped. That was almost scary, from a entrepreneurship standpoint, because you're like, I remember like telling the team, we're a small team at that point. We're like, okay, don't touch anything, don't change the website, don't leave it. We don't know how long this will last.
Yep.
And then a week goes by, and it's like it's still going. It's like, all right, you can start touching things a little bit, but yeah, it was pretty crazy. And then COVID ended, and then that was the biggest hangover of our whole history.
Yeah.
And then sales dropped very aggressively, and we had just raised a big amount of money. And from investors I dearly respect and really wanted to, like, thank them by performing, if you want. Anyway, so at that point, I think we got so many random people that otherwise would not have purchased us to join our company as customers, that I think we lost our way with who is our true customer. And then for 3-4 years, we built FightCamp, I think, in a way that was a brand that was getting away a little bit from our soul and from the grassroots community that we were from, that I feel at some point, like, we were like, man, I don't even recognize this company at this point. And I think we just kept listening to a customer audience that was mostly there during COVID, would have left. So we did a big rebrand, actually, like last year, just before the holiday season, where like we came back to our roots and changed our audience to be a lot more, grassroots focused, and someone who's genuinely into whether it means to be a martial artist or what it means to be boxing, not someone that's going to get turned off by the violence, or, doesn't like when this person swears on their workouts, or it's like, like, I think we toned down so many things that at the end it felt like we're Disney, where, this is really an HBO type sport and activity. So yeah, that was a third reinvention.
Yeah. And so where are you guys now? So rebranded last year. So like kind of back to the roots. So actually I'm innately curious, because like, I've seen you in my calendar because we've had this podcast scheduled, but like I didn't even realize there were all these ways. I was like, oh, what is it? But like, are there multiple ways that people can engage? Like they can just use the app, or they can have the bag and the sensors. Like how can people engage with you at FightCamp?
Yeah. So I would say there's 3 ways to engage with us. The first, and the one that costs nothing, is if you are into boxing and martial arts, you can check our website and social media. Because we're very much in, we have the mission, our internal mission and vision is to inspire the fighter within. And we want to do that with people that don't have to be our customers, right? So like the way that our content angle that we make is making the culture, not just who's good right now in the sport or whatever, really more so the culture and the technical aspect of boxing and martial arts. We want to make that accessible to the world, but not toning it down. We're not going to change how we speak. We're not going to change how we dress. We're not going to change like what we like and what we don't like in the sport. We're just going to be raw, and it's for people to make the decision if they want to join this community or not. So that's the easiest way. So you can go at FightCamp on social media. You can look us up, FightCamp in one word, also on YouTube. And you'll see that we have all sorts of different playlists and so forth, as well as content and continuous series we consistently post about. Same thing on TikTok. Now, that's the easiest way. The other way is if you like what you see and you're like, you know what, I want to start training, then you basically have two different ways to come in. Maybe you have your equipment, and those are people that maybe have bought their bags already. They don't want to get a new bag. As a matter of fact, they may even have their own gloves, right? And they have their favorite gloves that they prefer to use. So then you get basically our Connect package, which is only our tech, right? Think of it as like, it looks almost like a Nintendo Switch from a size standpoint. And you plug that to your TV, and it has the trackers that you're going to put with the quick wraps that you'll receive. And from there, you can basically follow our classes with your own equipment. The other way is when you're like, listen, I actually want a high quality equipment that is going to be easy to install, and that's actually going to be, thought for someone's home. Then you go for our full packages. There's different ones depending on the accessories you want, but it'll come with a freestanding bag. And I will say that very proudly, any 99% of the freestanding bags that you can find, literally you'll knock them down with like a small kick, like they're quote unquote garbage. I'm sorry. They are. Ours is literally the only one that you can hit as much as you can and as strongly as you want, and it'll stay in place, assuming you fill it up with with sand all the way to the top. So that's really the only freestanding bag that will actually stay in place, because freestanding bags are much easier to move around and they're much easier to install, and you don't have the chains banging on, and you don't have to install a hanging bag on a support beam or whatever. A lot easier and we argue more convenient for your home. Then you have other accessories that, we have, for example, a sound sleeve that you can put on top of your bag. And that way, if you want to work out in the morning, your kids are sleeping, you're not going to wake them up. It reduces the sound, quite meaningfully. And we have a few things like that. So that's the overview.
Yeah, I'm feeling this like innate desire. If everybody watching this happens to see me on social in like 4 months boxing in my garage, it's because I'm like, it combines everything that I love, right? Like, I need the accountability of like a Strava app, which you have in your app, which is like, there's a leaderboard. Okay, what classes am I doing? I struggle to like follow just a training plan. I can lifting, but like if I have sets and reps, I'd rather be watching a video. Like it used to be insanity, right? Where it's like, take me through this, tell me what to do, like kind of yell at me. And then the ease of use of being able to go for like 4 minutes or 10 minutes or an hour, because everything looks like it's in like 3-minute rounds and it hits everything. So I like, I'm actually like itching. I'll probably be asking you other questions too.
Absolutely.
Because I'm like personally, and I was like, oh, here we go.
We'd be honored.
Yeah, I love, and I think for everybody, I also love, and I caught it when you said you got back to your soul and back to your roots. I loved when you said it. It's like kind of like tapping into the fighter within. I love that, right? And I even think about this whole conversation, like how you embody that as an entrepreneur, like how you embody that with like perseverance, with like a definition of success. Like you can see your DNA as an entrepreneur in the DNA of the company, which I love, except the vehicle is different. This one is boxing and this one is the business of boxing, right?
Yep.
And so I love that. And this might sound cliche, but I'm just curious because I think for everybody listening, I'm really glad that Khalil, that you shared your whole story, because I think you've raised 6 to 7 rounds. You've been in the tech world. You moved a company from Canada to San Francisco. You had the height of COVID. Then you had the biggest hangover ever. you've been through all of it. And like, I think raising rounds, one of those rounds was close to like $100 million, if I remember from my research, right?
It
So
was in
you've
totality. It was in totality. Yeah.
totality. Yeah. So like you've been on the field, like Teddy
Uh-huh.
Roosevelt, man in the arena quote for 12 years, right?
Right.
5 or 6 other co-founders all doing this together in all of these tumultuous things. So this might feel like a cliche question, but I have to ask it because if in retrospect and looking backwards, right? Like if we look at like the last 12 years, if you could go back and talk to Khalil like
Mm-hmm.
2014 and tell him like 3 to 4 things, like what would you tell him and what have you learned? I'm just so
Mm.
curious.
This is full on therapy, George.
Yeah, I'm sorry. This is what I'm known
This is
for.
great. No, this is great.
Yeah,
I
I
love it.
love it.
I love
I
it.
want the meat.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I believe it or not, I think one of the first thing that I'm still working on, but one of the first thing I would tell myself is you have to stop doing what you're doing for proving your self-worth. This needs to come from inside, not outside.
Yes.
This is deep.
There's the therapy part. Yep.
So that's one. And I think that one is too very, very meaty. The second one I would say is in a little bit in the same way, but all you can do really is your best, and you're not gonna disappoint anybody. You know, like I think starting to do it, you feel like even like I don't know, like maybe your friends are putting a little bit of money in your startup or whatever. You feel like the weight, like people are like gonna forever disinherit you and cut ties with you if your business is not doing well. It's like, you know, it's hopefully you know you don't lie and you don't misconstrue anything. But if you are ethical and you have integrity, this is you know, everyone is playing a little bit gambling and casino here, like including yourself with your time. You're the one playing it the most. So it's like your investors all the way down to the rest. It's like, you know, all you can do is your best, but you have to be responsible. Obviously, you have to have integrity and ethical, but all you can do is your best. Relax. People are going to be fine. This is not the last business that is not the home run that everyone hoped. You know, as a matter of fact, that's the default. The third thing I would say is sometimes separation is better for both parties. And that's it took me so long to understand that.
Yep.
You know, like I think it helped very early on because we were like, we're a family. We're not leaving anyone but like we're a family. And you know, the Vin Diesel in me can I calm down a little bit here. And because sometimes things don't work out, you know, and or sometimes things work out for a very long time, but at some point, you know, someone is starting to move on, maybe if they don't even know it themselves, you know. So I think holding on to everybody at all time at all cost is a very expensive lesson.
Yep.
And then the last one, just enjoy the wins and the losses. It's like what makes this exciting, you know. If it's just like the plateaus are sometimes kind of just before it gets worse for some reason. Like I don't enjoy them as I used to be because it's, you know, once you remove the ego part of it, figuring out challenges is actually somehow much more rewarding.
100%.
Like, you know, than just like hitting it high. Like it's almost like when you hit it high, you almost there's more fear of losing where you're at, and where like when challenges get like you can only go up from a challenge or an obstacle in front of you, and that's just, you know, a puzzle to figure out, where like the high success points can be quite stressful, honestly.
Yeah. I totally agree with you. I mean, I think we all know, like I'm unapologetically a man of faith, you know, Jesus saved my life. But even before then, it's like when we reflect back on like 43 years of my life, I don't remember the easy wins. I remember the hard losses and lessons, and I crave them and I savor them. Like they're
Yeah.
why I'm a good dad. They're why I'm an incredible partner. They're why I love my friends the way that I love my friends. Like they're the reason why I do everything I do to this day. It wasn't because it was like, oh, that was easy. There's no meaning underneath any of it. And
Right.
those reflections are absolutely huge. And I think, for everybody listening, even ask yourself that question right now, like wherever you are in your business or in your life, right? Like I am going to be cliche, but like there's a version of us in the past that prayed and swore we would never have the life that we're living in right now. And
So
we
true.
forget about that. Right. And then, to your point, because Khalil mentioned this, so then it's like this never ending rat race, but like take the time and take a moment to like look back and be like, where was I? What did I learn? What would I tell myself? And I think a lot of the times you'd be like, I never thought where I am right now was possible, yet I'm beating myself up about some false number or line that I'm doing my best at, and I'm not learning the lesson. And I think it's an invitation for all of us, because I don't know about you, but the longer I've been in entrepreneurship, the more and more I realize that it really is a vessel for me to create whatever meaning I wanted to create. And the older I am, and the more experience I have, is like that meaning I don't want to sacrifice and be like, well, I'll do it in 10 years or I'll do it in 20 years. I want to do it now. Like, how can I show up in the business today that brings me fulfillment? Like, how can I wake up excited even about the hard days because I love what I'm doing, instead of like, oh, well, Friday's coming or next Saturday's coming, or I'll be through this. And, I think that that's a thing that comes with reps and experience. And I love the way that you framed that. And, all of it. And also too, Khalil, I want to ask you just about connecting with you. So for everybody listening, I literally have everything Fight Camp open on my computer right now. I have the website, I have the YouTube, I see the tech, I have the bag package I'm looking at. But also, Khalil, I know everybody can connect with Fight Camp. Is there anyone where anybody can personally connect with you who wants to ask you a question? Or I think you have so much wisdom and experience to offer entrepreneurs, and I think it would be silly not to give them your personal info if you're willing to share where they can connect with you personally.
No, 100%. I'm always down to help a fellow entrepreneur. You can reach out to me on Instagram, actually, at Khalil Zahar. So KhalilZahar. And that's probably the best place to reach me. I check it quite often. And feel free to reach out to me there. I don't have a lot of it's a fairly new account, and just send me a DM. I'm super happy to strike conversation. My LinkedIn, don't go there. It's a graveyard. I never check it. It's, haven't changed my pictures in 10 years. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm banned on LinkedIn for life. So it's even better. I'm just not on there. So
there you go.
It's even better. And, I wanted to say that because I think, just for me, you and I have been in this game for a similar amount of time, but there's so much wisdom that oozes out of you. And of course the business is there, and it's an incredible product. I'm actually excited, and I'll talk to you about it offline. But I think underneath it all is you as a person, you can feel your integrity, you can feel your passion, you can feel the perseverance, everything that you've spoken about, you can feel. And I feel like the greatest gift of the world is you sharing that wisdom with others, because I know it's blessed me today. And so, for everybody listening, watching, we are bald brothers, by the way, just in case if you're not watching, we share this in common. It's why we get along so well.
That's the wisdom right there.
That's the wisdom, man. It is. I had somebody years ago say, gray in the head is from stress and gray in the beard is wisdom. Okay. And so I shave my head so we don't know if it's gray, but I have this one patch of gray in my beard right here. And I'm like, it's wisdom. It's my wisdom stripe.
Yeah.
But I think for everybody listening, I can't think of any business right now or any stage of entrepreneurship where you can't relate to something that Khalil shared today. Right. And even in the lens of I know personally, as somebody who helps people like him scale, this is 3 businesses in one. It's not I went out on kindergarten. You're I'm going to do 3 professional sports at the same time. And there's lessons galore outside of all of it. And underneath all of it, and I think for all of us listening, like maybe perseverance is the carry through for you. Maybe it's the giving yourself grace and space. Maybe it's allowing yourself to celebrate that what you're doing is enough, and that's the season that you're in. Maybe it's realizing that the only worth that you have is what you dictate it, not the results that you create. Maybe it's like, oh my God, I have this nightmare client and I've always been afraid to let them go. Maybe that relationship has served its course. They happen for a reason, a season, or a lifetime, and the choice isn't up to you. Maybe it's, I need to redefine my identity and get back to who I am and who I serve. Maybe I need to make sure my business is in alignment in a way that like I'm proud of it, right? There's 100 fortune cookies loaded in this conversation. And the most important thing, and I'll just relate it to boxing, is like the only way to get better is to practice. The only way to progress in the race is to take a step. And so the only way for any of these things to change themselves is that whatever one of those fortune cookies landed today, you grab that fortune cookie and eat it consistently. Like, don't let it sit on the table. I get mad at people that open fortune cookies and throw away the fortune cookie. I'm like, no, eat the cookie. It's the cost of entry. Now bring the fortune to life. Okay.
I agree.
But make sure you eat it. And so to land the plane, Khalil, I want to ask one more question because everybody knows where to connect with you. It's joinfightcamp.com. It's FightCamp on all the socials. It's really easy to find. We'll have all of it linked in the show notes. But now I love asking this question. I want you to imagine that everybody listening, because the attention span, I found this out today in a podcast I recorded, the average attention span of an adult online as of 2026 is 8.2 seconds. 8.2 seconds. It's mind-blowing to me.
Yeah.
But I imagine that we fought that attention span with a few people, and I want you to imagine they forgot absolutely everything that we talked about in this conversation. But right now, whatever you share with them, they will never forget. It will be wisdom that is tattooed on their soul. Can be a line, can be a word, can be a phrase, can be a sentence, can be a paragraph. And I'm just buying you time to think for a minute. But I'm just curious for everybody listening, if you could leave them with one piece of wisdom to take with them forever, what would that tattoo wisdom be?
I think I'll go back to how to win in entrepreneurship. And for me, I'll repeat it. Entrepreneurship is an endurance sport. And to be able to get past the finish line, you have to ask yourself, how can I be happy working very hard for a long time? And that should be your North Star. Because once you start drifting away from it, this is where people start quitting and failing. And that's the only way to fail, which is the beauty of it at the same time.
Way to put a bow on it. Way to slam it, tie it all the way together, all the way back to the beginning. We close every loop. And so for everybody listening, I can't do much better than that tattoo wisdom, but I am going to say this again. Connect with Khalil, connect with FightCamp. Maybe you're like, you know what? I've been looking for a hobby. Great. Pick it up. Maybe you're like, I need some anger management. Great. Do this before therapy. Maybe you're like, you know what? I've never even tried it and you're curious. Great. Maybe it's connecting with Khalil on Instagram and sending him a thank you of like, this really resonated or this really landed. Maybe it's asking a question. But I think most importantly, and there was something Khalil said very early on in the show about isolation. No matter what on the other side of this podcast right now, you listening or you watching, the one thing that we can't do is we can't reach through the screen, the microphone, or the speaker and make you do anything. But if any of this resonated, take that as the tickle test from God that you should reach out and do one of these things. Because on the other side of that is something new, something that you're looking for. And I promise you it will only help. And so take one of those actions today. Connect with FightCamp, connect with Khalil, pick up a hobby, make sure you tell him, do whatever you want to do. But most importantly, do something. And so we're going to wrap the show. We're going to land the plane. Khalil, I thank you for being here. For everybody listening, this has been another crazy episode of the Mind of George show. So you will either see me in your eyeballs or you'll hear me in your earballs. But either way, we are out. So remember that relationships will always beat algorithms. And most importantly, the one with yourself. See you soon.